Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host, Mark Lornich of Statewide News Service, jbiztechvalley.com. And as you can see right here, columnist for the Jewish Press.
And I'm enjoying all three assignments, and one of my previous publications that I used to write for was Water Technology Magazine, which I never thought the words cryptosporidium and giardia would be in my vocabulary, but I did that for over a year. And with us today is Joe Coffey, the Commissioner of the Albany Water Board Department
of Water and Water Supply.
Water Supply. Well,
it's a good thing, Mark, you're educated with water. Now we have an educated panelist.
It's like point of use, point of entry, POU, POE, a lot of poo-poos. And, and we actually had a writer, reporter, Amy Poe, POE, working there. Anyhow, Joe, welcome to the Jewish View. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us, what's the latest that's going on in water technology?
Well, sometimes it's hard to get to water technology. I used to think when our email address of one of our operators at the plant was water in, water out. But it's a little bit more than that. Today, we like to get technology into our program, but we still deal with the day-to-day issues. We had a water main break today on First Street. So we struggle with those issues. But
why are they breaking so much? That's all you hear, like you say, every month there's something big happening.
It's hard to say. Usually we get a lot of breaks in the wintertime in the Northeast because of the frost and the pressures the frost puts on the pipes. Even though they're 5 to 6 feet deep, we still get pressure on the pipes, and that causes them to break. We actually had a lot of breaks this summer, which we thought was a little bit unusual. It's not always old pipe, because the old pipes we have pipe that goes back to 1851, still in use in front of City Hall. But we have pipes that are in place since that time that they're relatively thick wall cast iron pipe, and they seem like they take a lot of punishment. We've had a lot of breaks since I've been commissioner that are pipes that are ductile iron pipe that were put in the ground in 1970. Really? So, it's relatively newer pipe. And the issue there is, well, the pipe it's a thinner wall pipe. So sometimes that could be a workmanship issue, where the pipe was manufactured. It could be an installation problem. But it's kind of unusual to get pipes that break that are, that relatively that new.
Get more out of it, get 100 years out of it.
But you'd be surprised. And frankly, we've had what normally fails on the older systems, it's not the pipe, it's the valves. We had a break, I think it was in March of 2015 on Central Avenue. We had water gushing out of the street, probably lost about 5 million gallons of water. And the issue there was the valve broke, and the valve was like 1929, and the pipe was 1876. And when we cut the pipe away to put the valve in, the inside of the pipe looked like it was brand new.
Really?
But you talk about technology, and kind of a segue of why we lost 5 million gallons of water in that break is we couldn't find the valves to shut them off. And the reason for that is that they were under snow, under ice in some of the intersections. So our folks, when they go out in the field, we have these books that we use that have all the locations of all of our water mains and where the valves are, and it'll tell us, well, it's on this corner of this side of the street or whatever, but if you're under snow, you still can't find it. So now we actually go out with a GPS unit, and we can locate our valves with latitude and longitude to within an inch. So once we get these locations, we can map them out, verify that our printed maps are accurate. But more importantly, we can walk out in the field and punch in where we want that valve number 300 to be, and just walk around till we're standing on it. And that way we know right there is where we dig.
It sounds like my car GPS, where it gets me within like 500 yards of where I got.
Well, and if we're walking on the intersection and things say recalculate to get the other side of the street.
How much does a machine like that cost?
We bought three of these units. Cost us about $27,000 with the software,
each.
but total with the three.
9,000.
Not about 9,000 each.
See, I could do math.
But with the accuracy and the saving of the time and the accuracy of our maps, instead of walking around with these books that are that weigh a lot, and this is half scale. Usually they're full sets of drawings. This is just the water. We have the same thing with the sewer. We get all that stuff mapped. We can put them on notebooks, which are a lot lighter, a lot more flexible. We can call them up, and then we can actually, point to the valve or the water main that we're looking at. It tells us what year it was, how big it is, where the valves are on it. So the technology, it's incremental, And it's a journey, it takes a while to
Yeah.
get to that point, but it's very important as we migrate to the 21st century.
Do you find that you have to hire younger folks to know how this, who are more, in their mind, that they're more electronically inclined, as opposed to someone who's
Someone
been on
like
the
me,
job?
yeah.
No, because I was amazed. You actually tweet. When I was sat in on that water board meeting, the headline that I came out of it is Joe Coffey tweets.
Albany Water, at Albany Water. But
That was the
that's-
only thing.
But that's a good way for us to get information out to our constituents
That
and our
was the
customers
headline for
pretty
me.
quickly.
That's why when I came out, I said it was entertaining.
But all joking aside, I'm
Well-
66 years old. I graduated from college in 1972.
Yeah.
And we were using slide rules. There were no electronic calculators. We were probably the last class to use slide rules. And I showed it to my son. He said the first thing he's thinking about is eBay. You could probably make like $1 million. I said it's not quite that expensive. But a unit like this, younger people are probably more inclined and more apt to pick it up more quickly.
Yeah.
We even see it with our foremen. Some of the guys have been working 25, 30 years. It's tough to get away from the tools that brought you there, the paper plans, because you're comfortable with them. So we see it, it's not resistance, it's probably a little, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to use it, but I
Yeah.
think the stuff is pretty intuitive. You can pick it up, it's point and click and use
Yeah.
it. As long as, I can use the excuse that GPS doesn't work inside, otherwise I can tell you how smart I am. I know how to turn it on, but that's about it. But the technology is really going to be a great tool
Let's go back
for
to the
us.
source. Where is the Albany water coming from? It's
The
got to
Al-
come from somewhere.
It does.
doesn't
The
come from
Albany,
heaven.
our source that we currently use is the Alcove Reservoir. It's up in the Tannequemines. It was created by damming the Hannacroy Creek back in the late 1920s. It holds about 12 billion gallons of water,
Really?
and is really high-quality water. The folks that go back and you read the engineers' reports from the 1910s and the 20s, when they actually designed and thought the system out, they were brilliant. They didn't have GPS survey technology, they didn't have all the computers,
Right.
but they designed a system that runs entirely by gravity. It's extremely efficient,
Really?
and frankly, the quality is excellent. And so we're very fortunate.
So you don't
to-
need a pump to pump it through.
Now, if the elevation of the alcove is 618 feet above sea level, it goes down into the town of Bethlehem and Furibush, where our water plant is, at elevation 400 something, and then it flows down through the city, just over sea level. And we also have reservoirs up in Loudonville, at Loudonville Reservoir, which is
Right.
elevation 350.
And that's on like Albany Shaker
Albany Shaker Road,
Yeah,
as you
right,
go up from
I see
Memorial
that.
Hospital up the road to the right.
Yeah,
That little
and-
open, the field that goes up the
And
hill, we
that's
have
like
three
on the
reservoirs.
Colony-Albany border. almost.
Actually,
It's
the,
like-
the sea basin is in the town of Colony. And in Loudonville, we hold about 212 million gallons, and that's like a day tank that we float off
Yeah.
of. So in the nighttime, we fill Loudonville, in the daytime, we draw from it.
What's a drought, maybe? We had a little bit of a drought in the Northeast. They said don't water your lawns. What's the level that it gets down to then?
That's a great question. In fact, I'm doing a presentation to Cana tomorrow night. I'm going to show them a slide of where we have
Cana is the
the
Council of
Albany,
Albany
Neighborhood Associations. And I've got a slide which shows the 54-year average elevation every month of Alcove. And you look at the average elevation every month, even in spite of the fact that we've had kind of a drought, we're pretty close to what the average elevation is every month in Alcove. But part of the reason we got there is in February and March, we took 6 weeks and we diverted flow from the Basic Creek Reservoir, which is our secondary supply, and we actually augmented flow into Alcove. So we probably added about 200 million gallons of water into Alcove because the Alcove has been down. The Alcove spills over its dam at 618 feet above sea level. It hasn't done that since April of 2014, which is a little odd, a little unusual. So right now, we're probably...
Because of the rain, because there's less
It's a lack,
rain.
and last winter was kind of dry. We didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of snow, so we're hoping for a wet winter. I'm not a big snow person, so I could deal with a little bit of rain, a little bit of, if it snows up in the Tannequemines, that's good. As long as it goes into Alcove, I'm fine with that.
Now, Rabbi, 618, I know 613 is the number of mitzvahs in the Torah. Say anything about 618?
No, it's just good water supply.
Just
That's
good
the
water
main
supply?
thing, yeah, so-
Okay, so let me...
I want to add, so
yeah.
how much water does City of Albany use a year then?
A year or a
Well,
day?
Well, also a
we
day
pro-
or a
we
year, I mean,
produce-
just, because I would say how much water you need.
It's interesting because we run about, the plant treats about 20 million gallons a day average.
That's a lot.
So over the course of the year, that's a fair amount of water. So the water we produce through the plant is like maybe 7 billion gallons a year. of water. We can account for maybe 5 billion.
Right.
So 2 billion gallons of water is going someplace.
Right.
Some of that could be leakage, some of it we're just not sure. So one of the things we're trying to do with other forms of technology is do leak detection.
So that was
we're-
going to be my next question, because New York City, they say, is terrible leaks through their system.
Well, it's from the Catskills, that comes down from the Catskills. And there was a case in Orange County where someone just saw this lake and a farmland, and they thought it was a man-made lake. And it turns out that it was not so man-made.
Well, New
It
York,
was,
yeah, New York City has these big
it
tunnels
was
that
this,
go, yeah.
it was this water, that main break, and it filled up this farmland, and people just left it. They liked the having the pond, you know.
Well, if it works for you, I
It
guess
works
it's good.
for it,
We'd
yeah.
rather not do that.
But-
We'd rather not have to treat the water because we pay to get it treated.
Yeah, so what do
And
you?
if you're losing it,
So what do you treat? I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but when you say treat the water, explain that. What is
well, you
it?
talked about Giardia and cryptosporidium
Yeah.
and stuff. So from Alcove, we pipe the water about 8 miles through a 48-inch diameter pipe to Fluoridation. And that's, I'd say it's a conventional dual media filtration plant there, produces excellent quality water. And then we run another 12 miles to the Loudonville reservoirs through
Yeah,
the
but
city.
what is it that you're? I mean, you're putting chlorine in.
We
Your-
put chemicals in to kind of help us remove some of the solids from the water, which aren't a lot, and we do chlorinate the water
Okay.
at Fluoridation.
Okay.
Now, when we run the water, it's a very high quality water. It goes through the city up into Loudonville. Well, the Loudonville Reservoir is an open water storage. So we have 212 million gallons of treated water that's open to the atmosphere. So, you know, you've got birds flying around and
pooping. yeah.
potential. So but we monitor that very carefully. We've got wires that cross over to keep the birds from landing in it. We keep materials off the surface of it. But in Loudonville, as it goes back into the city water, into the pipes, we chlorinate it again, but we also put ultraviolet light. And we treat it with ultraviolet light. It was one of the first plants upstate to use UV light. And that helps us for virucidal treatment. And so we've been pretty fortunate. We've never had any
One of
issues
the
with
biggest
quality.
questions always you haven't mentioned is fluoride, because I know it even comes up in my synagogue, and they say, some people say, oh, fluoride is a deadly chemical, and then I have a few dentists, Jewish dentists in my, oh, that's the greatest thing in the world. You're kidding me? You know, it prevents so many cavities. So-
Every congregation has a few Jewish
Argument.
dentists.
You know, fluoridation has an interesting history in the city of Albany, from what I understand. I grew up in the city, and I probably have more crowns on my mouth than Queen Elizabeth has had over 90 years. And part of that is because the city really doesn't fluoridate their water. Most of the towns around Albany fluoridate. And it's something I think every community tends to look at, you know, every few years. I know the New York State Health Department's looking with grant programs now to encourage communities to upgrade their fluoridation equipment or consider fluoridation for those that don't have it.
What would be the advantage? If you say you have good water without it, what would be?
It doesn't
what would they
change-
argue to you that, oh, this would be good for you? You know?
Well, it doesn't really change the quality of the water from the standards that we think about from sanitation. But my dentist also is, you know, how come you guys don't fluoridate your water? Every time I'm in a chair and I got a mouthful of stuff, how come you don't fluoridate your water? But the issue, I think all the research shows, whether it's the Waterworks Association, the Dental Societies, the American Medical Association, I think most professional medical folks really promote fluoridation as a real anti-carie mechanism, particularly for younger children and the kids, particularly in Albany, that don't have access to perhaps good dental preventive care, don't have fluoride in toothpaste, and
Right.
don't get their checkup every 6 months with fluoride treatments. Fluoridation in the water is something that can be considered.
So let me ask you, you mentioned about the water that comes through the town of Bethlehem.
Mhm.
Now, you have a bunch of signs, you have these right-of-ways and,
Correct.
and paths that people tend to use as walking paths. But they're posted, the signs are posted that says, you know, City of Albany, Albany Water Department or something to that effect. I think we have a picture of that to show.
There you go.
There you go. So this is one of the
This
paths.
is in what city?
This
Yep.
is in Bethlehem,
Yep.
All right.
off of Dover Drive, and and it shows that we're, now, do you mow the lawn?
We do.
How do you take care of this? And I know that you told me, like, from between Queens and Albany, there's like, how many, 12 miles or 15 miles of paths that you got to mow, and it takes a while.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. In fact, we can start, by the time we start at the water filter plant and get to Bethlehem, we can almost turn around and go back again, but we still have to do the other part,
Right.
that goes up through parts of Bethlehem into Albany, and then from
So it's not
through up to
it's not
Loudonville.
illegal for people to walk through there and
No,
walk their dogs?
No,
and-
Mark, I think what we really try to do, it's more to keep the ATVs, the motorized vehicles off the right of way. Naturally, when you have a nice area like that, it's a nice hiking area.
Yeah.
But
Jogging and
yeah,
something.
but we don't maintain, we don't want
Yeah,
people running and breaking their ankles on it either. But it's a nice right of way. It's very scenic, and obviously hiking is healthy.
Right.
But I think our primary concern is keeping the motorized vehicles off
Right.
for erosion. And then frankly, the right of way we have goes, it's behind people's backyards. Some people like privacy, so we're sensitive to that as well.
Yeah, but they also probably like, I mean, because there are forage or whatever that has like thistles on them, and, they really have to be mowed down and stuff like that. So, even on the sides, not just where the middle part, but also on the sides. And
On another
I mean, you're smiling or smirking, and I don't know what you're thinking
No,
of.
it's a lot of stuff to mow, and we've got specialized mowers to do it, and a lot of times, if it gets wet for a little bit, it's tough to get the heavy mowing equipment.
Right.
You don't want to run there and create all kinds of ruts. So it's like everything else. We try to balance where are the resources best directed for
I understand.
producing a high quality water.
People are talking about water. One of the main things is the biggest industry is buying water.
Right.
And, someone told me it's billions of dollar industry
Oh, yeah.
today, and, it feels like it's almost an insult to you. What, you have to buy it? I'm giving it to you. What do you have to go out and buy it? I mean, or is it a total waste of money?
No, when I worked for Water Technology Magazine, and you could tell us if it's a total waste of money, but actually, bottled water is regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. The tap water is regulated by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency.
Or health department, the local health departments.
Local, but I'm talking about the federal to federal. And then, but the EPA has stricter standards for parts per billion of contaminants than the FDA does in their bottled water. So you're actually getting purer water in the out of the
Higher
tap.
standards.
But I'll tell you, when I wanted to write this story for Water Technology Magazine, they said, well, you can't. I said, why? And they said, well, look at who we have ads from. We have ads from, Aquafina and other, products. We don't have ads from the water
City of Albany
department,
Water Commission.
municipal.
Well, we could bottle water,
department.
put our pictures on it and sell it. But I use the,
But,
there's two things, I think, when people are environmentally conscious people. You look at bottled water, it's a lot of plastic and a lot of
Yeah.
materials that are used for bottled water. I look at it as someone who's relatively cheap. So I can sit there and take my plastic or whatever container I have, my healthy, safe,
Yeah.
portable container, and fill it with Albany water. And we were talking before off camera that we can sell you 1,000 gallons of water for $3.60.
Well,
You can't buy a lot of bottled water for $3.60.
this is
And,
BPA free,
Yeah.
so this is what I carry around, and I just keep refilling it.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I think it's just got to
So-
be kind of a habit, and it's easy, there's
Yeah.
lots of bottled water
Well,
in your.
I think
Liz
people
Bishop
think
once
that it's
told me-
healthy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to bring out.
I'm
I
not
think-
suggesting it's unhealthy. To me, I'm
Well,
just
I
not
didn't
sure
say
it's
unhealthy,
economical.
but I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you're paying something that you can get for practically free.
Yeah.
That's, see, I have a bottled, and it's special water from the who knows where,
But the Liz Bishop, the anchor on Channel 6, she says she just likes the convenience of it. She doesn't buy it because it's
Healthy.
healthy or not, or it's plastic or not plastic. She just buys it because she
You
likes
buy
the
a bottle and
convenience.
you take it off with you. Well, you could fill it up like you
That's-
do, Mark.
Just
over
turn the
there.
tap on and fill it
Yeah,
up.
I know,
but,
and it's too hard for people
well-
nowadays.
Anyway, so any thoughts on any of this?
I like to sell our Albany water. I think it tastes pretty good. In fact, in the past, we've won some good, best tasting water in the Capital District, so.
And the state fair you won?
We've won it a couple of
times.
times. Yeah, a lot of our, frankly, not just Albany, but a lot of our local communities have won, the state fair awards. Latham's won it, I think. Bethlehem's won it a couple times, so.
Yep. And so,
It's really Bethlehem water probably comes near to the source water is probably,
Yeah, everybody's sources are a little bit different, because we sell water to Guilderland and Bethlehem to help augment their supplies. I know Bethlehem gets water from a couple of different places, and now Guilderland gets water from wells, and also the Waterbury Reservoir, and they have a filter plant. So everybody treats water, and as we were talking before, you have to treat it to a pretty high standard to meet the state sanitary code and pass muster with the health department and the standards we all have to meet. So I think all the water produced by our local communities is pretty good
you know what
water.
I remember that someone was arguing, he says, maybe it's true, because, I heard that water supply is good, but the pipes coming into your house would be maybe bad, that would be, and that would ruin your water quality, I'm giving good water, and then by the time it comes into your house.
That's the big topic today is lead service lines and
Yeah.
lead in drinking water. Flint, Michigan, I think probably is the one that certainly brought that to the forefront.
well, also the school districts around here.
A little bit,
They
yeah.
found-
The thing with the school districts, like Albany, we all have lead and copper compliance that we need to do. We've got 28,000 connections in the city, probably over 20,000 are lead service lines. But we have.
Connections meaning to people's houses.
From
you're talking.
the cast iron pipe into the street, they were built until 19, depends on where you are.
Right.
They were lead service lines, and now they're all copper or plastic. But the Albany uses a corrosion control program where we maintain a pH so that we tend to deposit a film on the pipes, including the lead pipes, that would prevent the lead in the pipe from leaching out.
That's interesting.
But in the pipes in your house, you have lead in the solder, and so the issue with the schools is a lot of times the pipes the water is not going through the pipes for a long period of time. So the first use, you could get a little slug of lead that's coming out of the solder or from the lead lines that go into the schools, because a lot of the schools now are getting lead detection when the municipalities are meeting their lead compliance.
Well, I
Because
think
they
that-
haven't used for the whole weekend or 3-day
Yeah,
week,
and I think
and then
that's-
all of a sudden after
boom,
3 days,
yeah.
one Monday morning, a
Yeah.
kid wants water, and then.
But I think you're also talking about the summertime when you come back in the fall, let's say, and then all of a sudden you turn on.
You've had
Well,
2
that's
months
what-
that you haven't used the water
Right,
at all. Yeah.
but staff comes in the day before students, so I think the staff, staff, not just teachers, but, other staff, they try to rinse the lines and make it.
Really?
That's the
better.
safest thing to do, is I
Yeah.
think, and people, if you have a lead service line, just let your cold water run for a minute or so until you feel the temperature getting
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
And that's telling you're getting the water from the outside.
That's interesting.
What other tricks of the trade do you have that really surprised you? Now, you're a professional engineer
I am.
by trade or by?
Education
Yeah.
and practice. I worked in consulting engineering for 40 years.
Okay, so you're perfect for this job, right? Because professional
I
engineers.
don't know about perfect. I have a pretty good background for it. The work I've done as a consultant was for a lot of other municipal systems.
Yeah.
So one of the things I think I can bring is some experience working with other communities, and you want to take the best practices from other places and bring them into Albany. So I think I've been able to help do that with our Deputy Commissioner, Bill Simcoe, who's also a PE. That's been helpful.
Have you found issues where your predecessor didn't do things quite right because he probably just didn't know, or is it pretty much?
No, I'm not sure it's that, Mark. I think we all bring a different skill set to
Yeah.
the job. I think when we've come in, we've had the long-term control plan on the sewer side as part of the consent order for the combined sewer overflows. So we're focusing on that. We're trying to put some asset management, and we're trying to look at, implementation technology. I think every commissioner and every administration has a different challenge they face. So I think ours is really the rebuilding of the infrastructure, the implementing of asset management and technology. So we all face a different challenge.
You told an interesting story at the last water board meeting. I encourage everyone to go because it was, quite interesting.
Really does sound like it's one of the highlights.
About your employee was driving down Lark Street, I believe, and he saw water bubbling up. Maybe I didn't get it 100%
Well, yeah,
right, but-
I think one of the things I've always been very impressed with is all of our employees, for whatever reason, they don't just drive by something. If something doesn't look right, they stop, they report it, and they respond. And when that happens, I think we're able to get to a problem before it gets to be a big problem. The big problems are the sinkholes, the Madison Avenue, the South Lake Avenue.
What
You
are
don't get to them
sinkholes?
fast
Wait, let
enough.
him finish
Well, I
this
just
whole
wanted
thing.
to.
But no, but I think again, Mark, that's just an example where, we
What
stress
happened in this?
professionalism.
What happened in this instance?
In Lark Street?
Well, it's where we found where what was starting to become a kind of a break or a leak, we caught it really soon, so it didn't get to be a major break. We didn't have a big disruption of service, and it just makes life a lot
And
easier.
but it was one of your employees,
Yeah.
you should be employee of the month.
Well, we have a lot of those.
so-
There's not enough months in the year,
Okay.
and awards we can give out, because I think all of our employees every day do something like that we all just take for granted.
Right,
And what I
okay.
keep telling people is, I will never take our folks for granted for what they do every day. And it's not just that type of stuff, but when I started working, I wanted to get a sense for what our folks were going through.
Right.
And it was like, I started in, the wintertime in January, and I was out 2 weeks, and I go out on a job, it's, 11:30 at night till 2 o'clock in the morning. These guys are standing and fixing on a water main break, water all over the place, their pants are frozen, it's below zero, the wind's blowing, I'm going, God. Boy, do I, and every time I'm just thinking of turning the water faucet on or flushing the water closet, and there's a reason that things work all the time, it's because folks like that are out there working.
Things are so simple, right, you just turn on water.
Yeah.
What is a sinkhole? So I didn't want to interrupt you, but, because you hear about them all over the place or all over the country.
You do, but I think when we say a sinkhole in Florida is usually something where limestone has dissolved, it's created a cavity or a cavern below the earth's surface and the dirt collapses into it. The sinkholes that we think are up here are not really geologic, they're more from the context of a pipe, a sewer pipe perhaps, that may have cracked or broken, and the dirt kind of starts falling into the collapsed pipe or the crushed pipe. And if we have any kind of water making the soil more liquid, all that soil goes, and next thing you know, there's nothing holding that pavement up, and that's where it starts to drop. And if you get a vehicle driving over it, boom. That's kind of what happens that we had at New Scotland Avenue in Madison
Yeah,
back
sure,
in June,
yeah,
and then
sure.
at Albany and Lake this past August.
And that poor med student doesn't get his car repaired.
Just parked in the wrong place. Tough place.
It's the way
Tough
it goes.
situation. Well,
I also wanted to, first of all, I've always said that water is the source of life. And do you agree? Is that something you've heard before? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not only the source of life, but it's the lifeblood of economic development. For those who have lived in different parts of the country, as you folks have, I lived in South Carolina, which is for 10 years and worked down there, and it's a tremendous amount of economic development and growth, but they're going to be limited by having an abundant water supply that's available and relatively inexpensive. So now there's, in Atlanta and South Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina are fighting over kind of water rights. Now here, there was an interesting article about a year ago. It was in the Albany Business Review, and they were asking all the executives and local leaders about what's driving economic development. Education, nanotechnology, the state university, and I think it was the mayor of Amsterdam said water, an abundant supply of economical and high-quality drinking water.
It's very interesting.
And-
Look, we're on the Jewish View, and I'm a rabbi, so it actually says in Maimonides said that there's certain conditions that a normal person should live by, and one of them is Mayonas Mayim, which means a wellspring of water. So water is really, obviously, we would know it, but that's just normal. That I know people live in Las Vegas, and I said, "What are you living there for? It's a desert here. It's so beautiful. You're moving from the northeast to
And
to-
Mayim is the Hebrew word for water.
Mayim. And one other thing, that water really is very interesting. According to Talmud, they said you really can't charge. You don't charge for the air to breathe. You can't charge for water. But what can you do is, it's not you're charging for the water. Someone sticks their head in the lake, and say, "Hey, water commissioner, that's my water. Yeah, I'm charging you a dime." But it's really the process of bringing it. Well, like you're just saying, all these plants and the workers and the pipes. So there, you're not charging for the water, according to Talmudic law. You're charging for the convenience for bringing
We're
that
bringing
water
it to your,
inside.
we're bringing it to your residence. And, it's not a high profit margin. Like I said, you're getting 1,000 gallons of water for $3. That's a pretty
Why-
reasonable price.
Why is it that when I get my water bill, that the sewer and the water prices are exactly the same?
In Albany, that's just a function of how we assign our rates. Not every community is the same way.
Right,
but
but why
in
in
Albany-
Albany are you assigning rates where maybe the sewage would be less than water
Or it could be more.
More, right.
But I think,
Why are we doing it that way?
I think when you look at, in our budget, for example, the amount of labor and equipment and materials to produce the water is X number of dollars. It's so many dollars per gallon, if you will, to treat it and convey it. But we also, not only, we pipe and take the wastewater away from the houses, but we send it to the county who treats it. And we pay, the city of Albany pays Albany County Sewer District about $6 million a year
That's a lot.
for, treatment and disposal of wastewater, which is still a bargain when you think about it. Otherwise, we would have to have our own facilities. But again, that's a regional wastewater
Right.
approach. So it just works out that way, that it seems to be affordable and acceptable to our customers.
But don't you have, I mean, I called up many decades ago about this, and people, I couldn't get an answer. I couldn't get, they just didn't know why. It's just
That's
the way
because
it is.
that's the way the rates were, we have, every time we look at our
Don't-
rates, we have a public hearing. We present the information, what the rates are gonna be, and usually it's been very acceptable to the customers.
Okay, I mean, I just.
Mark, stop complaining
Oh, are
about your
we-
bill over here.
Are we
Yeah, look,
done?
where do you live?
Yeah.
Where do you live?
You know already, because you
No,
put
I'm
up the
just
stick on my,
I'm just
on
We
the
are
fire
done.
hydrant.
We have finished. It was such enjoyable. You wouldn't think water would be such an exciting show, but it really was. Because, like you say, you take it for granted.
We do.
Turn on the faucet and there's so much work involved, where it's coming from, how to monitor it, keeping it clean. So it's something that we should be aware of. And thank you very much for
Thank you.
making the water so pure
Yeah.
and good.
Yeah, continued success, Joe.
Thank you, thanks for having me.